Why Pokemon's newest type is a total success. Now, this is exactly the kind of title I like to see because I'm a big Terapagos enjoyer. I think that Terapagos is wonderful. I love using the terrestrialization in battles. I think it's super fun. It's different. Stellar typing is a bit weird, though. It does not really make a huge amount of sense to me why they made it the way that they did, but they did, and apparently it's a massive success. So let's learn why.
I made a video titled, Why Pokemon's Newest Type is a Total Failure.
I do remember that. Also, the thumbnails for these videos are always fantastic. Like, massive props to the thumbnail artists. That are linked in the description, by the way. Wolfie's thumbnails are always on point, always looking amazing.
And now, 1 year later, you're here watching a video calling the newest type a complete success.
Because things can change over a period of time.
But here's the thing, Pokemon didn't release a new type in between these two videos. I'm actually talking about the exact same type, the Stellar type. Stellar has gone from a colorfully animated afterthought to a real presence in the competitive scene.
I think it's just because they changed the way that the regulation works. For example, I think when he made the old video, I mean, I could be wrong. I think it was on a different regulation, so you could use different Pokemon. You were restricted to different Pokemon, and the Pokemon in that regulation didn't really use Stellar type very effectively. And then it moved on to a regulation where you could use things like Terapagos, or you could use Pokemon that could use those terrestrializations more effectively. Because really, metas in all games are just based off of what is available at that point in time, and things can change no matter what game you're playing.
In fact, I've been known to dabble in these most extravagant of hats myself. So
I'm pretty sure Wolfie at some point used like a Stellar Contrary Superior. And Stellar Terrestrialization can drop your stats. So if you use Contrary, instead of dropping your stats, it will increase your stats instead, which is that's a really creative use of it and very strong.
What happened? Did Game Freak see my video, get mad about how right I was, and buff the Stellar Terra? Did they release a new DLC with better Stellar type Pokemon? Or maybe did they shower some love on the Pokemon who created the phenomenon? You know what I'm talking about. In all three cases, though, the answer is the same. Nope. Here's the thing, absolutely nothing changed about the Stellar type except for the way that people are using it.
Nothing changed. Yeah, exactly. Nothing changed except for the way that people are using it. I mean, Stellar type is really interesting. From what I remember, it gives a one-time boost to every different type that you can use in your moveset. So if you have a dark type move, a fire type move, and a flying type move in your moveset, it gives a one-time boost to the dark type move, and then it gives a one-time boost to the fire type move, and a one-time boost to the flying type move, and then you don't get the boost after that. So it's interesting because it gives you a variety. If you have a wide variety in your moveset, you can do a lot of damage with all of those different moves rather than just relying on the terrestrialization boost that you get for one type and instead.
But to understand how they're using it, we have to talk about what it does first. So let's quickly review just what dipping into the Stellar stash does for your Pokemon.
I hope I wasn't wrong, because it's going to be really embarrassing for me if that was.
Is a little bit of an exaggeration in and of itself, but don't blame me. Pokemon themselves announced it as the 19th type. The truth is,
that's
though,
weird.
Stellar,
because it's not really a type. It doesn't have its own defensive mechanics. If you attack someone that's a Stellar type, it just goes off of their usual types. They call it the 19th type. Does that mean? I assume that just means that they don't plan on introducing an actual new type for a very long time. Maybe years. Up until the point where people forget about Stellar, which will probably be in, I don't know, about 2 weeks after Gen 10 comes out. Then they may think about introducing another type and it'd be like, oh, psych, this was the actual new type. Whoopsie.
More of a modifier than anything else. Actually, there's no way for Pokemon to naturally be Stellar type. And there aren't even any Stellar type moves, again, under normal circumstances. Despite the size of the crown, you could actually argue that Stellar changes less about a Pokemon than normal terrestrialization.
It does look really cool, though.
Terrestrializes, it loses its existing types and gets fully replaced by its Terra type. But
and a lot of people don't know this, when you lose your type with terrestrialization, you keep the stab bonus. You keep the same type of attack bonus. So a Sizzle that terrestrializes into fire might get a bonus for their fire type moves, yes, but they also still get the bonus to using bug and steel type moves. Some people don't know this for some reason. I don't know.
Terra types can lead to combos like an electric Cresselia levitating over any ground moves, or a fire type Gastrodon slurping up water moves with Storm Drain. The Stellar type changes the same amount of things about a Pokemon's defenses as the area of Paldea that it comes from, 0. A Pokemon who's terrestrialized to become the
good script right in there, folks.
Stellar type shares the exact same weaknesses and resistances as its base form, outside of one notable exception. No point for guessing who, we'll get there. Instead,
yeah, Terapagos is a weird example, but I absolutely love Terapagos. Maybe it's just my love of turtles. Turtles are just absolutely fantastic. And using Stellar Terapagos feels really good. And it helps that it's also really strong too. I mean, it's been doing some big numbers. I'm sure we'll find out later it's been doing big numbers in VGC.
Stellar is a Terra type that you only use for offense. It's here where things start to get a little bit complicated. Let's take a look at regular terastallization first. Last time I did this video, I used Terrifier Hydreigon as an example, but we're in a different format now, so I need...
Every time someone says Terrifier, I keep thinking about that one horror movie with the clown, because it's called the Terrifier.
Needed a new, stronger, candlestick-wearing dragon. How about Koraidon? No particular reason for choosing it, just off the top of my head. Now, when Koraidon terastallizes to a Fire-type Pokemon, its Fire-type moves, such as Flare Blitz, get a 50% damage boost, the same amount of boost that a Pokemon normally gets from using a move that's the same as one of its types. We call this boost Stab, or same type attack bonus.
There it is, folks.
If a Pokemon terastallizes to a type that it already had that was already getting this Stab boost,
so it gets more of a boost.
That would be Dragon or Fighting. That 50% boost instead becomes a 100% boost. Okay, but what happens with the Stellar Terra? Well, Stellar gives a boost to every type of move.
It's only 20% though, I'm pretty sure, isn't it? It's 20% boost.
Only once. So
20%?
In our example, a Stellar Koraidon would get a huge 100% damage boost on both of its stabs, but only once for a fighting move like Close Combat.
Oh, what? Wait, it gets a 50 boost for... Oh my god, I totally underestimated Stellar. I didn't realize it got a 50% boost on every move the first time you use it. Or is that just for stab moves?
And once for a dragon move like Dragon Claw, I guess, Scale Shot, Spike Blast? You can probably tell that Koraidon doesn't use the Stellar Terra very often.
Outrage?
One of the reasons for that comes from how Stellar interacts with types that the Pokemon doesn't already possess. Instead of the normal 50% boost that you get from terastallizing to a type, Terra Stellar grants a measly 20%.
Oh, there it is. Okay, so you get a 100% boost on stab moves and then 20% boost on non-stab moves?
Damage boost if it's a type that you didn't already have. That's the same amount that you get for holding on to one of Arceus's unused outfits that it threw out, by the way.
I don't know why I don't use Stellar terastallization more often in like the Then We Fight videos that we do. I feel like it could be really useful just to get that little bit of extra damage the first time that you use a move. That could be the difference maker. If you have a super effective move and you're like, I don't know if this is going to kill, a 20% damage buff, that's a lot. It's taking you from 80% to 96% damage. If you do 80% of the health, then you do 96% because it's 20% boosted, but it's 20% of 80% and 20% of 80% is like 60. I don't know. Sorry, maths is really hard.
It's better than nothing, but the alternative isn't nothing. For most Pokemon, the defensive potential afforded by terastallizing to a different type is way too much to pass up, and many attackers would often rather have the option to permanently boost one type of move rather than get a boost on every type of move, but only once per type. Earlier, I said that there were no Stellar type moves under normal circumstances, by which I mean...
Did Wolfie lie? Well, under normal circumstances. The only one is Terra Starstorm, I'm pretty sure.
Stellar type. But there are some moves that can become Stellar. The only Stellar move that most Pokemon in the game can use is Stellar Terra Terra Blast.
I completely forgot about Terra Blast. This is the weird one. This is the one that, for some reason, it has 100 base power. Terra Blast, I believe, usually has 80 base power. Unless when you terastallize, Terra Blast becomes 100 base power. I don't think it works that way. I think it's just Stellar that works that way. But also, it gives you this weird drop in stats after you use it for some reason. Oh, but this is also super effective against terastallized targets when it's Stellar. What a weird move this is. What was the meeting like when they were coming up for the effect on this thing?
We've mostly talked about Stellar defensively. So what types does a Stellar type move hit for super effective damage, and which types resist it? Well, that question's a little bit more complicated than you might think. Stellar moves have no resistances, and they don't hit anything super effectively, except for opposing Pokemon who are terastallized.
Which doesn't really seem like the most effective idea. Like maybe in VGC it's probably better because a terastallized Pokemon would be 25% of your team, but in a regular 6v6 battle, it would be much less than that. It would be 20% because, no, that's not right. It's 18%, 17.5%, please. Sorry, math is really hard.
When a Pokemon terastallizes to the Stellar type, in addition to getting a power boost on all of their moves and turning Terra Blast to a Stellar type attack, Terra Blast also jumps from 80 to 100 base power.
I mean, that's cool and all, but it doesn't really seem like as big of a buff as you'd really notice. I don't think most people would notice this.
And gains the drawback of lowering your attacking stats by 1 stage after it hits something.
Which is why it's really good with Contrary.
Once again, not the most attractive option. Thankfully, if you were looking for an attractive option, we've got you covered there too, thanks to our sponsor, Holzkern. If you're looking to shine bright like a terrestrialized Pokemon with some stellar accessories, look no further. I'd love to! Holzkern's watches and jewelry boost the
You know what's funny? I'm literally wearing a Holzkern ring right now. I have the ring on right now. I don't know. I love Holzkern.
No matter
what can I say?
And unlike the Stellar Terra, it's not even limited to just the first time you wear them. Their unique, high-quality products are made from natural materials and are sure to make you sparkle in any setting. And they'll continue to shine with their 2-year guarantee.
Wolfie, that sounds great.
Know that Holzkern is one of our longest-running sponsors, and that's because I genuinely love their products. I've worn a Holzkern watch every single day for what feels like most of the past 2 years, maybe even longer at this point. Since
Where does Mike go?
All messed up. Don't know why. I even have a couple Holzkern watches that I only break out as like my fancy watches
special occasions
for, you know, my fancier outfits. Their jewelry is awesome too. I was actually wearing it on stream in Toronto. This is a Holzkern piece.
He's looking good.
I've also used looking good, folks, to make great gifts for my friends and family. And you too can dazzle like a Terra Stellar.
Well, how, Wolfie? I mean, Wolfie, this sounds fantastic, but I bet it's really, really expensive without like a discount or something.
With your very own Holzkern products, without having to pay the price of what must be a very expensive Diamond Storm.
Wait, so I don't have to pay the price of a Diamond Storm? You're telling me it's quite cheap and affordable, actually? Well, if only there was a way to get even more money off it, Wolfie.
Use code Wolfie for 50% off across the entire website, with free express worldwide shipping that typically arrives within 2 to 5 business days. These speeds would even make Dragapult jealous. Once again, that's code Wolfie for 15% off. Thanks again to Holzkern for sponsoring
incredible,
this
Wolfie.
video. And that's pretty much everything you need to know about Stellar for most Pokemon, but not for all of them. There is one Pokemon who truly becomes
Terapagos time, baby!
It's time to talk about that very special Pokemon that I hinted at earlier. Ready to guess? Like I said, it's not very hard. That's right, it's...
Incineroar.
What? Yeah, thought you knew what was up, huh? Goes to show you when you get too comfortable around here.
What?
Never let your guard down. Blatant misdirection aside, Terapagos is, of course, the only Pokemon who reacts differently to stellar terrestrialization.
Did someone say reacts?
Aside from its form made exclusively to sell plushies and get
oh my god, I love
to
that.
watch the anime, Terapagos has 2 battle-relevant forms. When it enters the field, it automatically assumes the terrestrial form, making it a normal type that has okay stats and an
solid stats. It's got enough speed to not, I mean, it's not really got enough speed. It's got a decent amount of speed. It's got really good bulk across the board. It's not very offensively useful.
An ability that makes all moves not very effective, but only while Terapagos is at full health. But when it terrestrializes,
it is weird because it's not really the same as Multiscale or Shadow Shield that will half the damage of a move coming in as long as you have full health. It makes it not very effective instead, which changes how things work. For example, like with Tinted Lens, not very effective moves do more damage. So Tinted Lens works really well against a Terapagos, but doesn't work really well against Lunala, for example.
And it can only terrestrialize to the Stellar type, it enters its, well, Stellar form, gaining massive amounts of bulk and power, activating its new ability, Terraform Zero.
Yeah, it does gain a lot of health. In fact, I think it's one of the only Pokemon that can gain health upon changing forms.
Which removes all weather and terrain from the battlefield.
I mean, yeah, that's fine, I suppose. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen this be of use. I will say, I do love the fact that he has the little Terapagos thing on his Stellar cap. It's just really cute.
And transforming its signature move, Terra Starstorm, from a normal move into a Stellar type move that has no drawback, high base power, no resistances, and hits both of your opponent's Pokemon.
Yeah, I mean, it just can't really go wrong. In VGC, that can go crazy.
That just about sums up what the Stellar type does, in case you needed a reminder. So why exactly did I think that it was bad before? Well, to be fair to me, I never said that Terapagos was bad. And this is before the Pokemon was even tournament legal. What I said was, I thought it might be pretty good. In theory, it sounds extremely powerful. A contender in the Regulation G format, where restricted legendary Pokemon are allowed, maybe sometimes a tournament winner, but not the top turtle. And
which is sad because you'd think that in the region that it's introduced, it would be the big boy. It's the only time that Terapagos will have access to this terrestrialization. It's really the only time that Terapagos will be used in any kind of competitive format because remember Ultra Necrozma? Gone. The way of the dinosaurs. Remember Mega Rayquaza? Might be coming back, actually. Potentially in ZA. Maybe not gone just yet. But still, when those gimmicks get removed, like Gigantamax forms, then they kind of just are forgotten about. And it's really sad because I like Terapagos, but I think that Terapagos, after this generation, will be forgotten about. It will be put in the proverbial chest and locked and thrown away, just like all the other gimmicks.
That's pretty much what happened. Terapagos has ridden the ebbs and flows of the format, but it's pretty much always been one of the top 5 or so restricted Pokemon.
I mean, at least Miraidon's up there too. I'm sorry, I don't like Calyrex. I do not like Calyrex. I really hate this guy.
And despite never really rising,
I did use a Calyrex. No, I didn't use. When I battled the NAIC, the North American Internationals winner for a video on Force Swipe Gaming's channel, he asked me to like make a team with a coach that was wonderful coach, but that was genuinely good at VGC. I've never played it before. And I was like, first off, do not want to use Calyrex. I don't like that guy. Don't want to hang out with that guy. He can't come in my house. I will not offer him a cup of tea. And I made a team around Miraidon instead because, I mean, the Miraidon playstyle is really fun. It's like really just hit hard, hit fast, go home. That kind of thing. I love that playstyle. But also, Miraidon in general is fantastic. I do love purple, and I know that Shadowmere, Spectria down there is purple, but Calyrex's big, dumb, stupid, inflated green head makes me want to pop it with a pin and see how it flies away.
To the top, it's performed well across a number of tournaments. Terra Stellar is a huge part of its game plan. Honestly, it's kind of its whole game plan, which makes sense for a Pokemon designed around the mechanic. Boost your stats, terrestrialize in the most dramatic fashion possible, launch the attack that's responsible for the whole Terra phenomenon in the first place, profit. However, that reliance on the mechanic is also Terapagos' biggest weakness. It is very predictable, and it needs to terrestrialize in order to be useful. And it doesn't have the luxury of using terrestrialization to turn off its weaknesses like many of the other restricted legendary Pokemon.
Yeah, the problem with using Terapagos is they know you're not going to terrestrialize any other Pokemon. They know that you have to terrestrialize Terapagos. You have to. Otherwise, it's just sitting there being quite useless. And if you're single restricted Pokemon, if you're in a restricted format where you can only use one really, really powerful legendary and you've chosen Terapagos, if you don't use it to its fullest potential, then it's kind of just a dead fish in the water. And you're losing one of the strongest things that you have access to. And you don't have access to any of the other ones. It's not like Calyrex, that's really good no matter what, or, Miraidon, which is also really good no matter what. If you don't terrestrialize Terapagos, doesn't really do much.
Scarlet and Violet aren't over yet, so there's a chance that somewhere down the line, Terapagos will become more popular. Maybe in a rule set that allows more than one restricted legendary Pokemon.
Oh, well, hey, good news. Because this is indeed the case. There's a new regulation that allows more than one restricted Pokemon, which means Terapagos could be huge. Oh my god, yes! Yes! Terapagos is about to have a fantastic time. Before the end of Scarlet and Violet, I want it to win Worlds. Although that's maybe a pipe dream. I want it to win in Internationals at the very least. I don't think it's done that yet.
But for now, it's pretty widely agreed upon as about the 5th best restricted legendary Pokemon.
And that's all right.
Terapagos is a cool Pokemon, but what I really want to talk about in this video are the regular,
I love the contest reference. That's brilliant.
Non-special turtles who use the stellar type well.
Okay. I'm gonna say Urshifu uses stellar type. Superior uses stellar type. Who else? Incineroar. Maybe Incineroar's always doing stuff. Archaludon, just based off of the sprite here.
Now, when I made that first video, it's not like absolutely no one was using the stellar Tera. It was just really, really close to absolutely nobody. Wait, what's going on? It almost looks like some of you are stellar. Oh, that must be my subscribers. Hey everybody. Oh, so you were just regular too, huh? That's rough. Well, I guess there's nothing wrong with that, but if you want to become stellar too, all it takes is one click. And hey, Pokemon's making some pretty big moves over the next couple of years, so...
And you want to be subscribed to Wolfie VGC to make sure you don't miss out on any of that.
Subscribed anyway, so you can keep abreast of them. Didn't mean to use the word abreast there, but I think it actually works, but it feels kind of weird.
I love using words like that. I've been using betwixt a lot. I don't even know. I think it just means in the middle of something. Actually, I should figure out what that word actually means. Define betwixt.
Betwixt is a musical comedy conceived and written by Ian McFarlane.
What?
It also played a concert version in the West End at the Ambassadors Theatre.
Wait, is betwixt not a word? Oh god, what have I been doing?
We already discussed the drawbacks of Stellar Tera a decent amount, but let's talk about the specific circumstances that meant a scant few Pokemon could actually use it well. In my original video, I listed...
It is a sorry, I had to figure this out. It is a word. It is between things. He took betwixt thumb and forefinger with a he took you know what it says.
3 parameters to identify whether or not a Pokemon wants to use the Stellar Tera. First, no Pokemon that would want a defensive Tera will ever want to use Stellar Tera, since it doesn't change defensive relationships. Somewhat self-explanatory. Second,
So no Miraidons, no, Miraidon, yeah. Actually, you know what? Calyrex could probably use it, to be honest. Although, Calyrex probably does want to terrestrialize, because Ice-type Calyrex has a lot of weaknesses. Urshifu uses Stella a lot, I'm pretty sure.
Pokemon who aren't going to be in the battle for a long time have more of a reason to use it. Terra Stellar's boosts are one time only. Even if you switch out and come back in, once you've used it, the boost for that type is gone. A Pokemon attacking for 3 or 4 turns in a row will normally see more value from a regular Terra type, even an offensive one. To make Stellar work, we want fast and frail heavy hitters.
Yeah, you need something that can come in, terrestrialize, take advantage of that Stellar boost, get a lot of variety of the damage going out there, and then get out.
Finally, Pokemon who can take advantage of multiple types of strong moves, especially those with 2 types to take advantage of 2 stab boosts.
Ooh, I'm seeing some dark and fighting there. I'm thinking maybe some Urshifu.
Are possible good candidates for the Stellar Terra.
Maybe.
With these criteria identified, we could put out a perfect ad for the ideal Stellar candidate.
Yeah, you kind of do need dual typing on a Stellar Terra because of the fact that you get the 100% boost the first time you use a stab move. Like Urshifu, for example, would get it on Dark and Fighting, but something that's a single type would only get it on the single type that they are regularly.
Personal. New Terra type searching for its match. Stellar Stranger seeks a dual type, focus sash wielding attacker big on damage. Bulk not required.
Loves long walks on the beach and opening Pokemon card packs.
With all that in mind, I talked about 3 Pokemon who were sometimes using Stellar.
Oh, that's Fluttermane. That is 100% Fluttermane. Chien-Pao, Fluttermane, and Urshifu.
Chien-Pao, Urshifu Dark, and Fluttermane.
Let's
of
go!
These Pokemon fit the criteria that we'd crafted perfectly, but it wasn't a match made in heaven. Even with all these Pokemon fitting the profile, Stellar Terra was by no means the go-to choice for any of these Pokemon, and I highlighted different options that I thought were often better. The damage boost provided by Terra simply wasn't worth the trade-off a lot of the time. It felt terrible to not use Terra Ghost on Chien-Pao.
Yeah, because you can get faked out, you can get one-shot by any kind of fighting type move that's out there, you can't bait people into worrying about the ghost type terrestrialization to not attack you.
Giving up your immunity to fighting moves and to fake out, or having to choose between only boosting one of Wicked Blow or Sucker Punch, or Moonblast and Dazzling Gleam.
Oh, that's true, because it's based on the type, not the move, so you only get the boost the first time you use a certain type. If you have 2 moves of the same type, then yeah, you don't get it both times.
Stellar Terra was usable, but incredibly rare. And that brings us to today, where I've changed my tune completely. I said before that nothing changed with the Stellar type, so what did?
The meta changed.
Simple. The game around it and the people who play it. When the Stellar type was introduced, competitive Pokemon was still played in a format without powerful, restricted legendary Pokemon. We hadn't seen hide nor hair of a Terapagos, let alone a Miraidon or a Calyrex, but the Fluttermanes and Iron Hands of the world were still running amok. There was a bit of innovation with Stellar. We even saw some Urshifu run Terra Blast as a final move, with the idea being that you could still hit Pokemon who Terra'd to resist your moves, then ignore the
Oh, that's smart. Yeah, a lot of people will terrestrialize into things that will resist, like Fairy, for example, resists Urshifu really well. So you could run the Terra just to smack him nice and hard with it.
Drops because, in case you forgot, Urshifu is a cheater Pokemon who doesn't play by the rules. When the format changed to Regulation G, which allowed for a single restricted legendary Pokemon, Stellar Terra saw a bit more use right from the start. Part of that was Terapagos finally becoming legal, of course, but part of it was also people wanting to beat Terapagos as well. One Pokemon in particular stood out as
Oh, what is this? A counter to Terapagos, some kind of legendary maybe? Like, is it Cresselia? No, it's not going to be Cresselia. Is it Urshifu? It's not Fluttermane. It doesn't look like a Fluttermane.
I'm Stellar material.
Urshifu?
Urshifu Rapid
It is
Strike.
Urshifu.
In the previous format, many Urshifu chose to run the Choice Scarf or Mystic Water items. This made Terra Water by far the most popular choice on Urshifu, because not only did it give its water type moves a damage boost, but it also turned off some of its weaknesses, most notably to fairy type attacks.
My guess is that Urshifu is a good counter to Terapagos because Surging Sparks obviously always crits and hits 3 times, but also it's always a physical attacker, and Terapagos is usually run with some kind of Calm Mind set. It's either Calm Mind or Choice Specs that you usually run Terapagos with, and you can't boost its physical defense with Calm Mind or Choice Specs or anything like that, so maybe that's why.
But in the new format of Regulation G, due to the Pokemon being so much stronger, Focus Sash Urshifu became the dominant set. And Water Urshifu rose to prominence over its edgelord brethren, because in addition to hitting Terapagos,
Yes, the wet bear beats the creepy bear.
It could easily tank Calyrex Ice's Glacial Lance, it could turn Kyogre's Rain against it, and it could tear through Incineroar without worrying about Intimidate. Now, Tera Water was also used offensively in the past.
Oh, you don't worry about Intimidate because every critical hit ignores any stat drops that you might have. So if you have an attack drop due to the fact that an Intimidator came in, then all of your crits will ignore it regardless. And if you have a move that always crits like Surging Sparks, what the... Got cards on the brain, Surging Strikes, then it's always going to crit. And it's always going to hit with full damage.
It's an incredible move, and because Urshifu is naturally so strong, it benefits from an offensive Tera. In past formats, Urshifu often got the chance to use Surging Strikes multiple times in the same battle, because it could either knock opponents out before they could KO it, or it could force them to switch before attacking. And Tera Water did see some use in Regulation G as well. But by using Water Tera, Urshifu could not KO Terapagos in a single hit after it had gone big mode.
Oh no, because it's got way too much defense, it's got way too much HP.
Of course, you could think about Tera Fighting, but Tera Fighting just offers so much less value than Tera Water because Surging Strikes is Urshifu's best move. This seems like a pretty tough position to be in, but there was another option. Tera Stellar, giving Urshifu the general value of boosting its water-type moves most of the time, and helping it get the crucial KO against Terapagos with close combat at the same time.
Oh, because of the 100% boost that you get. Wow, Urshifu is really strong. I thought that, I don't know, for some reason, I thought that if you have a Terrasalized Terapagos has 160 base HP and 110 defense, I thought that would be more than enough to survive even double damage from a close combat.
It was this kind of small optimization that led to the advancement of Stellar Tera across the board. Stellar Urshifu became more and more popular. I even ran it both at North American Internationals and at the World Championships last year, despite the fact that I originally was a Stellar hater. And that's where the innovation comes from on the player side of things. See, every generation of Pokemon, even every new format, demands that players keep improving.
It demands. Like, for example, in Regulation A, the meta was using Pikachu, Fuecoco, Sprigatito, Quaxley, Tyranitar, and Salamence. That was the usual team that was running that. Like how the Regulation A is the only regulation that has those little babies in it, which leads me to believe, having no prior knowledge of Regulation A, that you have to use baby Pokemon in it.
Keep improving. Personally, I think this is one of the coolest parts of playing Pokemon. The game stands still for nobody. And a big part of what I love about this game personally is that it makes me feel like I never stop growing while I'm playing too. It also means,
I mean, it's true. He's been on top of the game for years and years and years. No one has been as consistently successful at getting wins than Wolfie has. It's really an undisputed fact at this point, especially since he recently won the EUIC, the internationals in the UK. It's pretty locked in.
That even after months of playing the same format, players still find small, precise adjustments, and sometimes even major breakthroughs that people had missed.
Yeah, because there's a 1,000 of the bloody things. 1,000 Pokemon. Absolutely ridiculous. I mean, they're not all in Scarlet and Violet, true. But when you combine 1,000 Pokemon with 18 different potential terrestrialization types with all the different moves that they can run, I mean, it takes a long time, but you can find answers to everything.
In a game like Pokemon, even the small adjustments are often enough to gain an edge over your opponent. Players identified that while Urshifu might be trading on overall firepower by going Stellar, taking out the turtle was so important that they justified the use of an otherwise weaker option. It's the players, and it's also the specific Pokemon that they had to deal with. And it's the collision of these two things that led to Stellar's Starburst when we moved on to the next format, Regulation H.
I don't think Regulation H had any legendaries in it, did it? So we went Regulation G, I think, was where you could have one legendary. Then H doesn't have any legendaries. And then in Regulation I, which is the one coming up next, is the one that you can have two legendaries in it.
Regulation H was, in terms of the Pokemon available, a step backwards. It banned all Paradox and legendary Pokemon from play, bringing the overall power level down by a huge amount.
They banned Paradoxes?
But as I've always said about Pokemon, a smaller Pokedex doesn't mean fewer usable Pokemon.
It still means that everyone will use Incineroar.
In fact, it often means the opposite. With less literally earth-shaping attacks flying around, the lower power Pokemon can finally crawl out of hiding and enjoy a chance to actually play the game. In Regulation H, that meant old standbys from past regulations like Kingambit and Goldengo returned. But it also meant Pokemon that had been newly released but crowded out, such as Archaludon and Ursaluna, could...
And yeah, Ursaluna Blood Moon is an absolute menace. It can terrestrialize into normal and have Hyper Voice hit both sides of the field. Its ability allows you to hit ghost types with your normal type moves. And Blood Moon's just ridiculous. I mean, you can't use it 2 turns in a row, but it's really strong.
Make a huge splash. And in this new format, very specific conditions allowed Terra Stellar to thrive. And with it, the players who identified its place as a solution to specific problems. We had a new applicant for our singles ad. One fit all the same
is it Sneasler?
Criteria that we'd been looking for before. Sneasler.
Oh, it is.
When Sneasler first made its time machine trek over from Hisui, it found itself totally outclassed as a fighting type by, you guessed it, Urshifu. But Urshifu is a legendary, so with the bare band, Sneasler was able to scavenge the remains of the format, quickly becoming one of the top threats.
And then absolutely dominated. From what I saw, which is literally just people tweeting, VGC people tweeting, is that Sneasler was an absolute menace. Apparently, people were saying that Sneasler was more annoying than to deal with an Urshifu or a Incineroar or anything like that.
Most used Pokemon.
51% of teams used Sneasler. 51%! That is a ludicrous amount of teams
in the game. Just like Urshifu, Fluttermane, and Chien-Pao, it's a fast, frail attacker who wants to use both types of its stab moves. It even has an additional reason to use the Focus Sash item. As if staying alive weren't appealing enough, Sneasler's Unburden ability also allows it to become the fastest thing on the field, bar none, once the Focus Sash has been used.
That is ludicrous. You just need to be 1 point ahead of someone to outspeed them. And that's ridiculous, man.
But as we saw before, simply fitting the criteria isn't enough to make Stellar work. You need to find the perfect constellation of damage calculations and use cases to actually make it fit. And luckily for Sneasler, it had its eye on the right place in the sky. As I mentioned, one of the other kings of Regulation H was a Pokemon already familiar with the throne. Kingambit. Now, Close Combat from Sneasler obviously should obliterate Kingambit, but
unless it's Focus Sash or a Ghost type. Actually, Ghost Kingambit is a really good answer to Sneasler.
It only works if Kingambit hasn't already terrestrialized into a Dark type. Once it becomes a pure Dark type, Sneasler just misses out in the KO unless it has some kind of additional boost.
Yeah, I suppose you want the Dark type on Kingambit because it can do so much damage with that Sucker Punch and that Kowtow Cleave. It just has a little head bang and kills things.
Is where Terra Stellar comes in. And in addition to knocking Kingambit off its lofty perch, it also helps out against opposing Archaludon and Incineroar. But of course, a calculation on one type of move isn't enough to justify Stellar on its own. If Close Combat was the only move that wanted to buff, why not just go for Terra Fighting and ensure everyone is pumping out huge damage?
Oh no, because we have Dire Claw, my dear. Dire Claw, one of the most fun moves. One that will randomly poison you, or maybe put you to sleep, or maybe even paralyze you. Who knows what will happen? Anything could happen. It's like Tri-Attack, except it's on a Sneasler, not a Porygon.
Now, you could argue that keeping Poison as a defensive type is actually helpful for Sneasler, but I don't buy it because Sneasler is frail enough already, even without factoring in that it's always lowering its defenses with Close Combat. So keeping Poison around wouldn't be enough on its own to justify using Stellar over Fighting.
It's got Focus Sash, it's fine. The real reason for the newest
type being used here was that it not only boosted Sneasler's Fighting type moves, but its Poison ones as well. Kingambit wasn't the only...
It has a 50%. I'm sorry, did I read that wrong? I thought it was 30. I thought it was 30%. It's no. It has a 50% chance of either poisoning, paralyzing, or putting the target to sleep. No wonder VGC folks didn't like Sneasler. Oh my god. That is a nightmare. A 50% chance of just like a game ending, paralyzing, half your speed, put you to sleep, just takes you out of the game. Poisoning could kill you with a bit of residual damage. Oh, what a nightmare that is.
Kingambit wasn't the only Pokemon that Sneasler was just barely missing out on one-hit KOing. It also came just shy against the starter duo of Rillaboom and Primarina. With Terra Stellar, one of the most toxic moves of all time could take them out in one hit. I'm talking about the move that some players believe single-handedly ruined this format, Dire Claw.
Yeah, 50% is insane. What were they thinking? I'm sorry, it's an 80 base power move that never misses, has 15 power points, is genuinely really, really good to use on any kind of poison type Pokemon. I mean, surely it's only on Sneasler, but you give it to a Pokemon with 130 attack, 130 speed, and it's a 50% chance of just ending your game?
Direclaw was already notorious due to its whopping 50% chance of inflicting a status condition.
I genuinely don't know what they would think of that. They should have made it like 20%, at best 10%.
But by running Terra Stellar, Sneasler could use it to do huge damage to boot. Stellar Sneasler wasn't used because it was the best type in a vacuum for the Pokemon.
Yeah, dude, it's like, oh, well, I'm Stellar now. I get to do massive damage with my Direclaw. Oh, you lived? Oh, you lived on 1 health point? Well, you're asleep now. Fuck you. You're asleep now.
But because of the shape of the specific Pokemon that we're seeing play and how much damage they just happen to take from Sneasler's moves. Even still, not every Sneasler ran Stellar. A lot opted for Dark to stay safe against Psychic type moves and in turn to fire off boosted Throat Chops, the power of which Stellar couldn't hope to match. And Sneasler's Stellar
What's boosted Throat Chop really useful against in that regulation, though, I wonder?
Served as the inspiration for several other Pokemon. Kingambit was so prevalent and so bulky that for a while there, Stellar almost looked like a second fighting type. At the most important event of Regulation H, 2 Focus Sash Stellar Annihilapes made it to the
LAIC, that's Latin America Internationals, I believe.
Finals. These Annihilapes needed the boost for a slightly different reason, though to the same Kingambit annihilating end. These players didn't want to train their Annihilapes fully in its attack stat because they needed the points elsewhere. Since they ran Final Gambits, these Annihilapes wanted some HP investment to ensure that they could surgically remove slower Pokemon. But because they'd taken points out of the attack stat,
Dude, poor Annihilape. He died. Not even in death may he rest. Even in death, he must kill himself.
Combat was not picking
with
up
Final
the KO
Gambit
against Terra Dark Kingambit, something that Terra Stellar could fix. But with Terra Stellar, close combat would pick up a one-hit KO, and also allow Annihilape to consistently KO Goldango with Rage Fist after they'd taken one hit, all the while still allowing them to invest heavily in their HP stat for Final Gambit. Stellar was so effective on fighting types that we even saw a rare non-dual type Pokemon use it, Mienshao.
Oh my god, 5th gen being represented? I mean, it's good. It sounds good. It's got like fake out, slaps you up a little bit. I wouldn't like being slapped up by a Mienshao, would you? Probably, well, maybe you would. Maybe you would actually. Maybe you would like using, I don't know, code Patterrz and gamer subs as well. I mean, I had the gamer subs pyramid behind me that's hanging on by a bloody thread. I don't know how this is still up. I mean, I need to turn this around. Oh, wait. Okay. All right. It's facing forward now. Oh, God. Okay. I'm not going to touch it anymore. It's hanging on by a bloody thread.
While Mienshao doesn't have a secondary stab move to exploit, it does have the useful coverage move of Ice Spinner. Now,
what? Since when does this thing get Ice Spinner? What in God blazes is this?
Stellar Terra, this move could miss out on a 2-hit KO on most Rillaboom in the format, but the one-time 20% boost just barely let it crest that threshold. Fighting types weren't the only beneficiaries though. The lower damage numbers of Regulation H meant that even Pokemon not traditionally thought of as attacking threats could take advantage of Stellar's damage boost. Pelipper was one such example.
Stellar Terra Pelipper? Are we being what? This is real?
I've personally never really been a fan of Pelipper, mostly because its stats are just terrible. But
let's go, Pelipper haters unite. Okay, to be fair, I don't really hate Pelipper. I most so just hate Wingle because I grew up in a seaside town. And if you grew up in a seaside town, especially in England, I don't know how it is in some other countries, there's seagulls bloody everywhere. And they are a nightmare. I've had seagulls swoop down and try and steal chips from us before. I've had seagulls have shat on me. Genuine, I hate them. And Pelipper is more so just an extension of my dislike towards Wingle.
Even I'll admit that it can put out huge damage with Stellar Terra thanks to 100% accuracy hurricanes and rain boosted weather balls. But arguably the most interesting Stellar type users were those who did it without a Focus Sash. Suddenly, we're editing that personal ad to be a bit more open-minded. After spending a few too many battles taking Stellar boosted close combats to the face,
he says, I'm bloody sick of it!
Archaludon decided that it had had enough. It was time to turn the star power back on its foes.
Archaludon says, I'm bloody sick of this. I'm really annoyed. You've ruined me holidays.
Some Archaludon did this because they were using the Sturdy ability, which is effectively just the Focus Sash item in ability form. But some Archaludon weren't some Focus Sash carrying frail little weasel. Instead, they were Pokemon that thrived on survivability thanks to the combination of its good natural bulk, its stamina ability, and the Assault Vest. So why did it end up using Stellar Terra? Well, for one thing,
I would imagine it would be to just get some KOs that it wouldn't be able to get previously on a lot of different Pokemon, right?
Archaludon's already got a great natural typing. For another, it's liable to take over games with that typing on its own if it gets enough boosts. And I'm not just talking
and it can get boosts from Electroshock.
About the defense boosts that come from stamina. While it is true that Archaludon is incentivized to use both Steel and Dragon type moves, a lot of the time it's going to click a move that's a totally different type first, Electroshock.
And with Stellar type, you can get the 20% boost on your first Electro Shot, and then you get a special attack boost, and then you can get a Draco meter boosted by your special attack boost, and the terracialization and stab, making you incredibly powerful, and you're really hard to kill because you have stamina and Assault Vest. It all comes together in a bad new adventure.
It takes one turn in the rain, and it boosts special attack before being launched. Archaludon frequently ended up with boost to spare after a few turns, and at that point, it wouldn't matter that the Stellar Terra had already worn off.
Because you're already strong enough to kill folk regardless.
The initial boost to Electro Shot, however small, does the job along with the one-time stab boost. Again, as with many of the Pokemon that I've mentioned, Stellar was never standard for Archaludon, but it was a niche option that showcased the typing being used in ways that we hadn't considered before.
Grass is really good for Archaludon because it means you can't be put to sleep.
And Archaludon actually isn't the only Dragon-type Pokemon that made Stellar.
And it's used usually in the rain, so you don't have as big of a fear toward fire types.
Work. In fact, I used Archaludon alongside a very different dragon myself, and while I didn't Stellar Terra Archaludon, I did make use of it on Kindra. And I used these two dragons to win the final tournament of Regulation H. See, I decided that I wanted to use Kindra, but I had some specific threats that I wanted to get rid of, specifically Jumpluff, Ursaluna, and Annihilape. And if you look at these calcs, those actually don't quite get there, but that's because I didn't include something. The item that I was using that wasn't Sash. See, I know from experience just how strong stacking multiple different multipliers can be. If I didn't have either Life Orb or Terra Stellar, Kindra would definitely come up short here. I had a Swiss Army Seahorse equipped to take on every situation where I needed it to.
Let's
Kindra
go.
was especially cool because it also had access to the Weather Ball attack, which was supposed to be used as a water type move.
I genuinely did not realize how good Weather Ball is until I think like maybe a couple of weeks ago when I discovered that Weather Ball in some kind of weather gets boosted to 100 base power. And that's the same strength as Earthquake. And then you additionally get boosted by Stab if it is a stab move. And then you additionally get boosted by the actual rain boost that you get. The rain boost, the sun boost, etc. I don't think there's a sand boost though, which is unfortunate. Like you'll get the 50 or you get the 100 base power, sure, but you won't get the actual boost to the move from the sun or the rain in the sand that you usually get, right?
But since Weather Ball's type changes depending on, well, the weather, it allowed me to get multiple different stellar type boosts than just Water and Dragon. And this situation actually came up in the finals where I was able to use a fire type Weather Ball earlier in the battle and then still have Water type moves boosted later on to try and close it out. And this last example, the one that I used for myself, is a big part of the reason why I've changed my tune on Stellar Terra. I can hear what you're saying. Wow, Wolf, you used the mechanic one time successfully and now you like it, huh? Well,
use the mechanic one time successfully and now you like it, huh?
Then I say, I've actually used it successfully a couple times, okay? First of all. And also, yeah, I'm not perfect. Game Freak, if you want me to test out any other mechanics and tell you if they're working, let me know. But in all seriousness, what I'm really saying is this. When I said that Terra Stellar wasn't all that successful a year ago, I said that it was a niche application only viable on a few Pokemon that was unlikely to see much play outside of these specific situations. And now, it's still a niche application, it's just viable on a few more Pokemon that only sees play in these specific situations. But in those situations, it's a total success. To be fair to the Stellar type, I could apply that same description to just about 90% of all the things in Pokemon. From item choices, to moves, to specific natures, to EV spreads that go down to some of the most ingenious innovations our game has ever seen. Just, I couldn't apply it to Incineroar. That Pokemon's a bit too popular.
He's just 61.9%! Bloody hell!
Terra Stellar may be niche, but I think that's actually a good thing. Trying to build a good team can sometimes feel like trying to draw blood from a stone.
I mean, it can really catch an opponent off guard as well. If they're not expecting someone to use Terrestrialization because it's an off-meta choice, then it can come in handy in those situations.
The most value possible from the most situations while not limiting yourself in others. I've talked a lot about how Stellar succeeded because of specific situations and threats in a format that allowed it to thrive. It's a precarious balance, right? We're saying functionally that it took off because of some pretty specific situations. Like think about Sneasler, a Pokemon that was formerly irrelevant but now became a top threat just because Pokemon instituted an arbitrary limited time format that banned all of the legendaries, and it just so happened that it barely doesn't one-shot these other extremely relevant Pokemon that people were using.
Unless you have a small 20% boost that was given to them by Stellar. I don't think they were thinking about that when they made Stellar type and like, oh, this is going to make some things just die to some moves. I mean, I don't know what they were thinking actually. It's such a weird idea.
That just so happened to be weak to both of its stab moves, and it was just short by the exact amount of a boost that Terra Stellar provides. Like, what? That is so specific. This is a
Unless they made stellar terrestrialization not for Terapagos, but for Sneasler instead.
pretty rickety Rube Goldberg machine, and the last time I made one of those, I just ended up with a bunch of marbles and dominoes all over the floor. You could make the argument that Stellar Terra only became more widespread because of specific conditions that happened within the formats, and actually, I guess I have spent a lot of the video telling you just that. But while it's certainly true that specific conditions let the Stellar Terra take off, it's not the only reason why.
I think it could be potentially good in Regulation I, but I mean, a lot of the terrestrialization you're doing in a regulation where you have restricted Pokemon are going to be on those restricted Pokemon. You're generally not going to be terrestrializing, say, your Urshifu, unless you're in a really bad spot, you're in a really like sticky situation, unless there's a certain team matchup that you're really not very good against. I would imagine you're always going to terrestrialize your Miraidon, or if you bring a Terapagos, you terrestrialize your Terapagos. Although if you do bring a Terapagos to Regulation I, where you can have 2 restricted Pokemon, that does kind of limit your options on terrestrializations. Unless you choose not to bring the Terapagos to a fight, you're probably going to terrestrialize it.
Personally, I give a lot of the credit to the team builders. And to be fair, I give it as well to Game Freak for designing such a well-balanced mechanic. I particularly appreciate this because we've been hit with lots of unbalanced mechanics and Pokemon over the years. Things so strong that their power is readily apparent. Not so much with Stellar. Its more reasonable offerings meant that team builders really had to find the perfect situations to use it. And that takes time. When Stellar Terra first released, it was a brand new concept that players had never seen before. So it makes some sense that we didn't figure out the best way to use it right away. But with time, trainers innovate, optimize, and push the game beyond its limits. With time, we come to see the potential from those who showed it before us. And with time, I've changed my opinion on Terra Stellar. These days, it is still rare once again, but who can say where the end of Scarlet and Violet will take us?
I mean, we don't know how long we have on Scarlet and Violet left. There still could be a while. There still could be a couple of years. I don't think Legends ZA will have online battling, though I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I hope it does have online battling, but, you know, Legends Arceus didn't, so Legends ZA might not either.
I'm really happy that Game Freak introduced a mechanic that seemed to be very weak when it first released, because it took some actual work to figure out just how it could be strong. Thanks for watching. If you like this,
hey, another brilliant video from MultiVGC. Please subscribe to him if you have not already. And please subscribe here. I mean, maybe you haven't subscribed here yet. Maybe you should think about it. Maybe you can do that. I don't know. Maybe you could.